Hey guys, welcome to the video on trade liberalisation and external stability. Now before we're going to go into the relationship between trade lib and external stability, we're going to go through the definitions once again, like we have in all our previous lectures. So trade liberalisation, to go through it again, is the gradual reduction of trade barriers. And as we know, external stability is achieved where Australia is living within its means, and is characterised by three pillars: a CAD to GDP ratio of around 3 to 4%, a sustainable net foreign debt, and a relatively stable dollar. The primary focus of external stability is this CAD to GDP ratio of 3 to 4%, because if we achieve this, then we can achieve or sustain our net foreign debt in the long run, as well as the dollar. So with a gradual reduction of trade barriers, this will affect trade, our external stability, in both the short run as well as the long run. And we're going to use flowcharts to see how our short run external stability is affected, as well as our long run. So we're going to start off with trade lib as our initial position. So where the government has introduced this macroeconomic reform of trade liberalisation, and they've promoted greater trade between countries. What this means is that there is a reduction in tariffs, subsidies, and quotas. So that makes purchasing imports cheaper. So imports are cheaper. However, at the moment, the situation in Australia is that we are producing goods that we don't have the comparative advantage in, such as manufacturing and retail. So we have very high labour costs, and therefore we can't compete with international firms. And so when imports are cheaper, this would mean we import more, because we are rational consumers, because we try to find the cheapest alternative so as to minimize our opportunity cost. And as a result, as we know, the CAD is made up of the balance on goods and services, as well as the primary incomes balance. As we know, when we import, that's going to be a debit to the current account, and in the short run, this would lead to a larger deficit, or larger current account deficit. So this would mean reduced external stability in the short run, and this is a very short run, when Australia is just trying to adapt to this new economic climate of trade liberalisation. In the long run, however, we're going to look at trade lib. What that's going to cause is going to cause a more efficient allocation of resources, both with our allocative efficiency as well as our technical efficiency. So allocative efficiency being resources allocated to areas of comparative cost advantage, and technical efficiency being where we are able to produce more goods and services, or produce more output relative imports made. So with more efficiency, or more efficient allocation of resources, this would mean that our exports will be cheaper. And this is due to cost cuts, or cuts in our production costs. You can also think of this as another flow, where our imports being cheaper equals 80% or thereabouts of our imports. So because imports are cheaper now, and therefore the cost of production is also cheaper, and now that we're producing goods and services where we have comparative cost advantage, therefore exports would also be cheaper. And this gives us a larger exportable base, because we no longer rely so heavily on domestic production for our consumption. So we could either produce, or we can either consume domestically, or we can either consume from imports. But now that imports are cheaper here, this would mean we have less reliance on domestic production, and that means we have more to export. Say we produce 100 units of goods and services. Before trade lib, we consumed 80 units of those goods, and we had only 20 units to trade. Now with trade lib, we can consume 50 units, we import 30 units, and now we have another 50 units to trade. And therefore that makes a larger exportable base. The result of that is a credit, or increased credits, to our current account. Let's make that a little bit clearer. Current account, CA. Okay. So with credits to our current account, this would lead to a smaller current account deficit. And as we know, the current account deficit is the major pillar. Think of that as the current account deficit. Then you have net foreign debt, and the stable dollar is less concerning for the government. But the current account deficit is very important because it feeds into the net foreign debt, and it would affect the dollar as well. So with a smaller CAD in the long run, this would mean that external stability is achieved. So these macroeconomic reform policies, they're all targeted at the long run. And so in the long run, with trade liberalisation in place, we can see that the government's goal of external stability can be achieved in the long run. However, in the short run, we can see that sometimes a larger CAD may result. But this sacrifice must be made in order for our long-run economic prosperity.